My name is Alexander Mazurek with Quint Wellington Redwood, and I'll be your host during today's session. First off, we're just going to cover a couple rules for the audience. First off, everybody's on mute, so you can hear us, but we cannot hear you, obviously. Please address any questions that you have on the content of this webinar in the questions panel of the GoToWebinar panel. You should see on the right side of your screen there. We're going to have a designated session at the end in which I will read all of the questions aloud, and our presenter today, Niels, will answer them for all to hear. Please use that same questions panel for any technical issues you may be experiencing. We'll do everything that we can on our end to alleviate any technical problems you may be experiencing. We're going to try and keep the content of today's webinar around 25 minutes for the session and 5 minutes at the end for Q&A. We can keep going a little bit longer if we have a good conversation going. And last off, we are recording this webinar, so if you need to leave early for any reason, you will be sent a recording in the follow-up after this webinar. So now just a little bit about organization before we begin. We are Quint Wellington Redwood. We're a completely independent management consulting firm that is dedicated to improving IT's value to the business. We've been in business for over 20 years now. We started in 1992 over in Amsterdam. But today we've expanded to be a completely global company. We have over 250 consultants operating in 49 countries on just about every single continent. Our core business practices include sourcing, architecture, governance, lean IT, ITSM, and DevOps. We are very proud to say that we've been selected by the IAOP as top global advisor on sourcing and governance for the last 3 years in a row. And last off, we continue to be a trendsetter in the areas of ITSM, lean IT, and DevOps. Now, I just want to introduce our presenter today, Niels Loader. He is a principal consultant here with us at Quint, the content board lead at the Lean IT Association, and the chief examiner of Lean IT at APMG. We're very lucky to have him here with us, and without any further ado, Niels, thank you for joining us today.
Okay, I'd like to take you through the world of continuous improvement as it's been developing, and my aim is to give you some insights and hope that you can apply some things in your organization that maybe you learn. So we're going to be talking about continuous improvement, obviously, why it's important for IT, why we need to standardize problem solving. Obviously, you will all, maybe you will all know the ITIL problem management process. Well, that's a process that a lot of IT organizations have some challenges with, and maybe this can help you to improve the capabilities of this process. Okay, I'll also try and talk to you about what the realities are and what kind of pitfalls you may come across, and hopefully you can make good use of what you hear today. But let me start by giving you a little bit of good news. Most of these things start with bad news. Let's start with some good news. Every IT organization improves. And the big question is, do you do it purposefully? Over the last 10 years or so, I've seen the inside workings of about 60-odd IT organizations, and I can safely say they all improve. But the issue is this improvement guided, or is it really a bunch of unguided missiles? And what you unfortunately see is that the guidance is not as good as we'd like it to be. And our challenge starts with one little simple word and our relationship with it. And the word is problem. By definition, this is kind of an undesirable state that we end up in, having problems, and this causes us, particularly in the Western world, to want to avoid problems. We don't really want to talk about them. We'd rather come with a positive story, and so it takes a very conscious effort to start learning to love problems. And if we can step away from the value judgment that we often have about the word problem, we can just accept them and see them as opportunities. And working towards solving these problems is what improving is all about. Okay, now IT as an area really needs to have continuous improvement. And why is that? Well, we need to focus on not temporary solutions, but really looking at the root causes of why things go wrong, and getting away from those temporary fixes. And especially if you look at the developments, how quickly they're going these days, with DevOps and the automation of our processes. These are things that are really going fast, and we need to focus on truly solving those problems. In fact, on the one hand, the automation of our processes, it causes problems, but it also makes the resolution of our problems much more achievable. Now, just when we talk about continuous improvement, we tend to come across the word in Lean, Kaizen, which basically means changing for the better. And the idea of Kaizen is that we do it continuously. We are always looking out for problems that we're trying to solve. Every day, everyone, everywhere is kind of the mantra. Okay, and so this is something that we need to embed in our organizations. The interesting thing is, how do you start embedding this into an organization? And that's really the key question. Well, there are two aspects. There are two aspects of continuous improvement, and these two things need to work together to make sure that continuous improvement becomes part of the habits of your organization. We basically talk about, one of the things we talk about most is Kaizen events. And that's what we call an improvement Kaizen here. This is where a group of people is brought together with a similar interest, and they get together to solve a particular problem. But we need to combine this with what we call daily Kaizen. And daily Kaizen is where we're continuously alert to issues that need to be addressed, and we tackle them as soon as possible. So we don't say, we could do with a checklist, or we could do with a nice little bit of scripting. We say, yes, we need it, and we do it straight away. And this is where there's quite a challenge for organizations to build in that action moment after you've seen that something needs to happen, especially on those small things. Where if you don't do it on the small things, the big things don't take care of themselves. Okay. When we talk about daily Kaizen, that's very close to this thing we call a Kaizen mindset. In Lean IT, we always talk about Lean being a way of thinking and acting. Well, this is the thinking bit, and if you look at the thinking bit, you kind of think, okay, well, isn't there a bit of acting in there as well? Well, yep, you're absolutely right. The most difficult thing with the Kaizen mindset is actually seeing and prioritizing problems. It's quite a skill to actually listen carefully, look carefully, and really uncover the problems that there are. We often have a tendency to hear them, but kind of go on to the next thing quite quickly. So what we need to do is learn as an organization to see problems. And we can do that using our visual management, our daily stand-ups, and listening carefully to what everybody's saying. So once we've seen and prioritized problems, we need to solve them, which means we need to look at the root cause of these problems. And again, this is somewhere something that I see us not being that great at, is really taking the time to look for root causes with a structured method that is repeatable and that others can join in with. We'll talk about that in a minute. And also, obviously, sharing our lessons learned. That's another thing. We tend to rush on to the next thing without really looking carefully at what we've actually learned and whether what we've learned can be used elsewhere in the organization. So this is the really the thinking and a bit of doing. When we come to actual doing, we strongly recommend, and I see this as being one of the success factors of IT organizations, is adopting a structured problem-solving approach. Why is this so important? It's important because you need to have people working in the same kind of way. And what we're trying to do is regularly get different types of or different groups of people together to solve problems, to solve different kinds of problems. And if they all come into the meeting and into the problem-solving meeting with a different approach, then we're not going to be able to focus on looking into this problem and finding solutions. We'll spend more time worrying about how we're going to work together. So I strongly recommend making sure that there are people trained up in a standard problem-solving approach, and the approach we've chosen is DMAIC, so define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. But obviously, you're welcome to choose any of the other methodologies. The common aspect of all these methodologies is they do one key thing, and that is they split the definition of the problem and looking into it from the creation of solutions. That's the big split, and that's the lesson that we've learned is that you really need to make sure that that you look at the problem first, analyze it properly, measure it properly. Otherwise, you end up seeing teams jump to conclusions. And I've seen this a number of times where people think that a technological solution should be applied, and what you then see is that they haven't looked carefully at the problem, and they end up doing the wrong thing. Okay. A lot of people within Lean like to use things like Plan, Do, Check, Act instead of DMAIC. You can also use something like A3 thinking. These are all methods that can help you to run these kind of short problem-solving events. Okay. Let's just take a brief look at problems within IT. As I said earlier, we have our ITIL problem management. Now, ITIL problem management, if you have experience with ITIL, you may recognize what I'm saying. It's one of the processes that we know is fabulously important, but we end up spending very little time on it. We spend a lot of time on incidents, we spend loads of time on doing changes, but taking that time to actually do problem management is kind of difficult. And why do I think that happens? It's because problem management shows a really cool process of how to go from a problem to a known error, and from a known error to a change to remove the root cause, but it doesn't actually tell you how. So if you add your DMAIC problem-solving method into your problem management process, it will help you to make that a much more powerful process. And let me give you a little tip here. One of the things that Lean also talks about is keeping your inventories down. And for this reason, what we always do with IT teams is say, each team within the IT organization must solve one problem per week per team. And an example of this is a project we did a number of years ago, where the IT organization, by applying this rigorously, went from 1,400 incidents per month down to 600 incidents per month over a period of approximately 20 months. Now, this was an amazing time saving. This meant that there was much less lost production hours on the business side, and this was all done through structured problem solving and ensuring that that there's this focus on the marathon of solving problems. Okay, problem management is not a sprint. That's when we come to answering or solving our incidents. Problem management is the marathon, and you see fabulous improvements if you maintain the discipline of one problem per team per week. And there are a lot of small ways we can improve our lives within IT. And this is where daily Kaizen comes in to really support the larger problems that we try to solve, possibly through problem management, but also through other maybe process-oriented Kaizen events. Okay, and daily Kaizen will have the effect of, for instance, writing a new script for installing software on laptops. Okay, you may think, oh, that's just my job, and it's something that I should have done anyway. But by pointing out that it is an improvement for everybody and pointing out that we're making steps to further automate our standard changes, you bring a positive vibe into your organization. I don't know whether you've come across this, but I come across it all the time where people say, oh, yeah, we really should document this process. And then I ask, well, how long would it take you to document the process? Well, about an hour or a procedure. And then I said, well, why don't you just do it today? Why don't you just have a chat with the team, check that they can make sure you're set aside for an hour, and then just make the checklist or the procedure. And it's kind of, oh, yeah, I suppose we could do that. And that feeling of acting on the small problems that you have every day really helps teams to take steps forward. Sorry. And they can have a huge impact on the IT organization after a little while. Okay, yeah, my experience in IT organizations, that's what you're probably looking for is what's this like? Well, unfortunately, it's hard work, but it's something where you need to recruit the whole organization to really join in and work together to create all these smaller and larger changes. Okay, and there's obviously one group of people who we hope will take a very important role in this, and that's obviously our leadership. And leadership, where we see slightly broader than just managers. We have that's more the formal leadership. We also have informal leaders within teams, and it's important for them to understand this concept of daily Kaizen and the effect that it has on people when they see that they're continuously improving their environment. We need to then develop the teams by practicing these daily routines. So we need to do little bits of rapid problem solving. We need to check that we understand the standards and that we improve the standards. And from these practices, we create habits, and these become very strong positive feedback loops. And when you see this happening in a team, it's like they're getting wings. It's a fabulous situation. And obviously, lean leaders must continuously support daily Kaizen, and also executing larger scale Kaizens, which means making people available for maybe 2, 3 days, 4 days, maybe sometimes 5 days on end to actually carry out and come to the conclusions that they need to get to. Okay, and this is something that lean IT leaders must put on their agendas on a daily basis to remind themselves, I must do this. Now, the great thing is that within Lean, we use what we call visual management. We create a visual infrastructure. Part of that visual infrastructure is an improvement board. And this improvement board is a really good reminder in each team that we have problems that we want to solve, we have improvements we want to make, and it makes sure that we keep our attention on these things. Okay, so we strongly recommend, at least if you don't use week boards and day boards, you can use an improvement board independently, and on that improvement board you can subdivide the improvements between the daily Kaizen type and the larger style, and you can manage their progress. Okay. Are there pitfalls? Are there things you need to watch out for? Well, of course there are. And one of the things you've got to watch out for most is kind of expecting instant results. As I said, it's about a marathon. It's about taking steps every day and looking month by month at where you're going, and you try and keep a picture in your mind of where you were when you started, and look at that picture 6 months down the line, and you will see huge differences. But from day to day, you may just see little steps. And maybe you just see a minor improvement, or maybe no improvement for the time being, but they will come. You do have to make sure that you make enough time available, and this is where the problem starts, because most IT teams, when we start with them, say, yeah, but we don't have time to improve, and I'm sure you recognise this. IT people are always busy, so the challenge is to find those Kaizen or improvement possibilities that will make time for you. And just invest that little bit of time to make sure you do those things, to earn minutes on your day and then hours on your day. And then you suddenly find out that you have much more time available. Now, Kaizen events, one of the big mistakes there is to let them drag on. So the maximum time you should let a Kaizen run for is about 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, you should have your results, and you should have some form of solution that you can use. Another one, again, IT is not not the only organization that or type of organization that does this. Is we as people have this tendency to jump to conclusions, especially when you start doing this DMAIC cycle and you've done the define phase and you've got this clear definition of your problem. And everybody goes, oh, yeah, I know what the solution to that is. And when you use a methodology, you need to then say, hang on, guys, we need to measure what the problem looks like. We need to measure the aspects of this problem to understand which bits are really causing the problem. Another issue I've seen quite often is when we select people based on availability rather than getting the right people in the room, and this is this really does affect the final quality of the result you're going to get. You need to have people who have intimate knowledge of the problem, and you need to get them in place to do the improvement. Obviously, management doesn't get away with doing nothing. They need to be sponsors, and they do need to get involved with solving problems. They need to show that they're interested in what results come out of it. That doesn't mean they need to get in there and actually do the solving. They need to go in there and challenge and energize the team to actually find the solutions. As I said earlier, if you shortcut the methodology by saying, we understand the problem, we don't need to measure stuff, and we'll do a little bit of analysis, but let's go and start finding some solutions, then you end up with a much poorer result. And these are things that I personally have stepped into some of these pitfalls, and I can tell you, please don't. Okay, so the key to continuous improvement is all about adding energy to the system. It's all about making sure that people see that when they improve something, they're making their own lives better. And one of the key misunderstandings is that Kaizen, is a really daily event. It's something you must do on a daily basis. You must also continuously help people to understand that there is always room for improvement. And if they don't think there are, let them go and talk to a customer. Customers will always find a way to explain to you how things can be done better. And you need to tell people and show people how you're improving. But you should start by counting your blessings. As I've said, make your small daily improvements. They are the key to huge long-term results. So please take the time to look at your organization, to look at the improvements you're making, and keep stimulating people to do that. So when you start improvement always starts with a learning. If you can't solve a problem if you don't learn along the way. And one of the first problems you may wish to solve is learning more about continuous improvement. Well, there's a Kaizen training that you can follow, and we talk about the daily Kaizen a lot in the Lean IT Leadership course. Right. So that's what I wanted to talk with you about today.
All right, perfect. And Niels was mentioning the Lean IT Association earlier. You can actually find information on that at the leanitassociation.com. And there's also another knowledge network called DASA, the DevOps Agile Skills Association, where there is a program being developed for DevOps and Agile as well. I highly recommend everyone to check that out. That is DevOpsAgileSkills.org. And if you'd like to learn how to get started with Lean IT or even ask for Niels directly to cover the program or any questions that you may have, always feel free to contact us. There's all the methods right there. We are active on just about every single social media network, especially LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. You can see the latest announcements on webinars that we are having, articles, white papers being released all the time. Please follow us on there. And that's all I wanted to cover today, everyone. Thank you, Niels, again for the great presentation, and I hope everybody has a great rest of your day wherever you are around the world. Bye-bye.